So Nintendo released a brand new trailer for Kirby and the Forgotten Land just a few days ago, and it's filled with a lot of new information about the game, including a release date of March 25th, just a couple of months away. But in the meantime, we've gotten to work. After all, this trailer has a lot to it. So, you know what that means. It's time we boot up the old analysis machine to see what secrets and hidden details we can find in this new Kirby trailer. Starting off with the very beginning of the trailer, it's pretty clear that this is part of a pre-rendered cutscene. It's a similar style to other Kirby intros, so this is likely part of the opening cutscene. Kirby flies around on a warp star, around what seems to be an area on Kirby's home planet. Aside from all of these weird Swiss cheese structures, it's pretty standard Kirby world. What really caught my attention here, though, was the audio. It starts off sounding like a radio transmission before the song actually kicks in. It's interesting, especially when we think about the space-themed amusement park we've seen before. But maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here. This isn't our only look at this opening cutscene in the trailer, so let's skip ahead a little. We can see these fox-like enemies chasing down Waddle Dees, trapping them in cages. According to Nintendo, the antagonists capturing Waddle Dees are called the Beast Pack. More than likely, this is happening while Kirby flies around on his warp star. Maybe he catches sight of this before pursuing the enemy. While this seems to be the last of the opening cutscene we see in the trailer, we can actually see more from screenshots. Kirby appears to fly into a storm. The clouds seem to cover the tops of the nearby mountains, so they're actually pretty low. They stretch across the entire sky, so this is definitely worth Kirby checking out. However, the next screenshot tells us that Kirby falls into a star-shaped rift in the clouds. It emits a blue light, illuminating the dark nearby clouds into what looks to be blue fire. Kirby falls into the bright rift, and then what happens to him? Well, according to the next screenshot in the sequence, he wakes up on a beach in this new Forgotten Land, as seen in the reveal trailer. Perhaps there's more to this opening sequence, maybe even teasing the fates or involvement of other Kirby characters. But for that, we'll have to wait and see. So, let's get back to this new trailer. Our first look at gameplay is Kirby inhaling this Poppy Bros Jr., obtaining the bomb ability. This appears to be in the overgrown city we saw a lot of in the first trailer. Notably, if we look at the various objects and enemies in the background up ahead, they appear to be moving at a lower frame rate. So, further objects likely move at a lower FPS, but when they're closer, move up to par with the rest of the game. It's a bit of a shame, honestly, but not exactly a deal breaker. But the very next clip takes us just ahead to that area, now with everything moving at a higher FPS. We can see Bomb Kirby blowing up boxes to move the shot zones down, allowing him to safely grab these point stars over here. The fox-like enemy runs at Kirby, and we can make out a Sir Kibble in the background behind some metal boxes, which likely cannot be blown up. The next clip focuses on another returning copy ability, Tornado Kirby. This one was missing from Star Allies, so it's pretty great to have it back. This seems to be some sort of Wasteland-like level, though still in a city. The general area doesn't seem as green, but it could very well just be a different area of the same overgrown city we've seen before. Behind Kirby is a Blade Knight, and off to the right are a pair of Poppy Bros Jr.'s. There's also this crudely drawn Kirby on the left, crossed out in purple paint. Quite the makeshift wanted poster. It's a bit different to the one seen in the mall in the first trailer too, so perhaps there'll be a small variety of these. Anyway, the clip continues, showing Tornado Kirby moving up the path and taking out the Poppy Bros Jr.'s. At the top of this path is a little balcony garden, 2 benches on both sides, a garden of flowers, and a nice arc at the end. We're not really sure where this leads though. Perhaps the path leads downwards after passing through the gate, or Kirby will need to leap to another rooftop. The next clip brings us to an entirely different region. This dry, arid region seems more like a desert, especially with the dried up plants, and the color scheme helps reinforce the idea as well. Hammer Kirby takes out a Sir Kibble in what appears to be a dried up pool. In fact, this general area seems to be some sort of resort that has turned into a desert wasteland. There's a beach chair and umbrella on the right, complete with a nice fancy glass left on the table. If we look out beyond the gated fence in the background, we can make out some sand dunes and a cactus as well. There's also this enemy walking in the background, which looks like a big gray version of the foxes. Likely a somewhat stronger version of them, ranked higher in the Beast Pack. And on the right, a Bouncy comes into view. Anyway, there's something else about this clip we haven't talked about yet.
What's this icky paint-like goop? It's moving!
You said it, Toad. Just what is this stuff? We can even see that it bubbles slightly. It seems to be puddles of poison, and it reminds me a bit of the Poison Kirby ability, introduced in Kirby Planet Robobot, and it hasn't returned since. Could we see Poison Kirby return here? Having a hazardous poison obstacle in the world means it's possible. Though we haven't even touched upon the most important part of this clip. Look at this cute little gecko down here. I'm not sure why he doesn't have any shadows on the ground, but it's really cute nonetheless, and it was worth pointing out. In all honesty though, I do think this poison means we could be seeing Poison Kirby, but this is the only hint we have to him thus far. The next clip brings us to a tropical area, with Kirby wielding his hammer ability. He does an aerial hammer flip to destroy a stack of boxes, and we can see he gets a banana out of it. Good old Kirby food items. The more interesting clip of Hammer Kirby in the tropics is next though, where we see him activate a large switch in the ground. The camera pans over to show part of the wall open up down in the water, and honestly this is exciting. We have some puzzles in Kirby. We've had puzzles before, of course, but not many that moved the camera like this. We can thank the 3D environment for that. We still don't know what's inside this new opening as a reward for solving the puzzle, but it's exciting nonetheless. Anyway, one of the large crocodile enemies can be seen here, which we saw in the last trailer. A glunk is also attached to the wall on the right. There's a bright yellow ladder up ahead, so if Kirby jumps down for a swim, he'll be able to climb back up. Moving on to the trailer, we get a nice look at Crash Kirby blowing up everything on screen. If we freeze right before the blast, we can get a good look at the area. We saw a bit of this area on the first trailer, some sort of oil rig or abandoned facility on the water between some islands. There's more whirlpools as we've seen in the area, as well as some glunks, a blipper down on the water, and this large seal enemy, which I'm pretty sure is new. There's something green just behind him, which I'm pretty sure is a green collectible crystal. We actually saw Kirby collect one of these in the first trailer. Given that this is one of the same color, perhaps these two clips are part of the same level. There's also something green on top of the seal's head, just behind the ball, but unfortunately we can't really make out what it is. The next clip introduces us to co-op functionality, with Bandana Waddle Dee. This is in the early plains area, that overgrown city we keep seeing. According to an official tweet, it seems the co-op is local only, so you won't be able to connect two Switches together wirelessly, or play online with friends. A shame, really, as this would make for an exciting online co-op experience, not unlike Super Mario 3D World. But then again, Kirby Star Allies was also only local multiplayer, so I guess this is to be expected. It's still a shame though. Anyway, Kirby and Bandana Dee head towards enemies in the same area. Kirby is using his sword ability, while Bandana Dee charges and throws his spear. While charging, an indicator appears for where it'll land, as well as an angle of its path through the air, which is incredibly helpful in a 3D space. The next clip skips ahead a bit, though this is still in the same general area. While Sword Kirby takes out the fox, Bandana Dee performs a waddlecopter to fly into the air with his spear. It works a bit differently now though, dropping a ton of spears below him, damaging enemies. This definitely makes it more offensive than it was before, and I'm totally game for making Bandana Dee even more formidable. We already looked at the next clip of the trailer, so we're gonna skip to Kirby meeting his teal-colored ally. They're in the ruined shambles of what will become Waddle Dee Town. This warp star at the center of the circular area makes it clear. We can learn a bit more about this ally from screenshots too. We can see from what appears to be the opening cutscene that they also get trapped just like the Waddle Dees, only they get a golden cage all to themselves. The structures around seem to suggest this may be the same ruins of Waddle Dee Town, so perhaps this is part of the first level. The next screenshot even shows that this is where the duo meet, where we learn this ally is named Elfilin. So if Elfilin is stored in a golden cage, and is rescued in the hub town by Kirby, why do we see this clip later in the trailer? A fake Elfilin in a silver cage. I really appreciate that this crafted Elfilin has button eyes, and we can even see the tape holding its ears together. But when would this scene play in the game? It can't be when Kirby originally rescues him, so perhaps this replaces rescued Waddle Dees when replaying levels? It seems to be in some sort of cave, with a barbed wire fence on the left, and mining lights on the ceiling. It kind of reminds me of the desert Wasteland area. Maybe Elfilin gets kidnapped during the adventure, and when Kirby searches for him, these fakes can be found? Well, looking a bit closer, most of the cages are held by these flying crows, but this one appears to be held up by a chain, and attached to the light here on the left. Not to mention, this clearly seems to be part of some cutscene. Before we move on, let's look at the cage itself. The silver cage appears to be a large monster's mouth, with teeth coming down with the bars. The gold cage, on the other hand, is more detailed, with a notable nose and claws. Clearly, these cages are made by the Beast Pack. Anyway, let's get back to where we were in the trailer. So the next clip in order of the trailer would be Fire Kirby and Elfilin approaching some trapped Waddle Dees. This looks to be on top of some sort of mountain, but I think we can place exactly where this is. Going off of the interesting shadows on the ground, I'm pretty confident this is just before battling Tropic Woods. The palm tree leaves have a pretty distinct shadow, and these look pretty similar. My guess is that Kirby and Elfilin climb up here, seed the Waddle Dees and approach. But then Tropic Woods awakens. He inhales or moves the Waddle Dees away as he gets a cinematic intro. As seen by a screenshot, his title card drops in. Unfriendly Franz, Tropic Woods. Then the battle begins. Since we're already talking about him, let's take a look at how this battle plays out. Between gameplay in the trailer and screenshots, it seems pretty safe to say that Fire Kirby is a good choice against Tropic Woods. We all know how well that went for Wispy Woods back in Star Allies after all. Anyway, Tropic Woods sends its roots burrowing through the ground, and eventually points outwards like spikes. We don't get to see any other attacks, but in the screenshot, he looks like he's about to spit a projectile at Kirby. Either way, given that this is more than likely the boss of World 2, he's likely to put up a good fight. Backtracking to earlier in the trailer, just after seeing those 3 Waddle Dees, we can see Kirby rescuing a single one. As soon as Kirby touches the cage, it disappears into light, and the Waddle Dee is free. Kirby holds hands with the Waddle Dee, spinning around while Elfilin flies, the trio forming a celebratory group pose. I wonder how this will look with Bandana Dee, and if the same thing will happen when rescuing 3 Waddle Dees from a golden cage. Either way, it's adorable, and I love this. Now, the next few clips focus on Waddle Dee Town and the world map, but these are huge points, so I'd like to come back to them later, after we've examined more of the rest of the trailer. So for the next clip, we'll look at this one, when Kirby and Elfilin are riding a warp star, seemingly entering this tropical level. As they fly in, we can make out some enemies and other details. A Foley flying around this tree, a Naughty on the beach, some glunks and blippers. There's also a small opening in the wall back here, behind some stacked boxes. This seems to be the start of a level, so they likely just entered from the world map. Though it's possible that this could just be the start of the specific area, rather than the full level, and Kirby is riding in from an earlier portion. We've seen from the first trailer that Kirby can use warp stars in levels after all. Unless this too was from the start of a level. Next up is our first look at Drill Kirby, a brand new copy ability. This clip comes from World 2, going off of the island structure at the level. Once it's in action, we can see that Kirby can, you guessed it, drill underground and move around. Digging into notable dirt mounds can give rewards, like point stars. Popping out of the ground deals damage to enemies, even in the air, as we can see from Kirby taking out the Scarfy. If we look over to the right, we can see a new mole-like enemy, which is likely what gives the drill ability. There's also this orange crystal in the middle of the platform. We mentioned the green ones earlier, so it seems likely that these come in different colors, probably depending on the level. Behind these, we can see a big Shotzo, and some Gordos as well. The following clip takes place over here, showing us just a bit more of what Drill Kirby can do. Notably, the orange crystal has already been collected, and now Kirby is battling this mole enemy. It seems that making a complete circle underground is a different attack, as we can see the ground begin to crack in the center, before erupting into a more powerful strike. It's hard to say if this is what kills the mole enemy, or Kirby jumping out of the ground does, but it's clear that this eruption attack is pretty powerful. There's some more digging spots up ahead, with some sort of buried treasures. While point stars are the more likely ones, I wonder if more could be hidden underground like this. Food items, other collectibles, maybe even enemies. Taking a look at some screenshots, we can learn even more about Drill Kirby. This shot appears to be somewhere underground. It actually reminds me of a subway tunnel, though it seems frozen over. There's ice and water down below, and a large icicle on the ceiling, not to mention the frost everywhere. Anyway, Kirby appears to be drilling horizontally in the air here, attacking a bouncy, and there's no indication that he came out of the ground. He can likely jump and move forward using the drill. There's another enemy on the right, holding a hammer. It appears monkey-like, and almost looks like DK Kirby, but with more detailed arms and a terrifying mouth. Seriously, this enemy looks really angry and honestly pretty terrifying. I would not want to find myself in a room filled with these guys. Back to the point though, there's a spot to drill on the wall, covered up by a star sticker. So Kirby can drill into walls as well as the ground, but can he move up and down in walls, or only straight into them? Moving back to the trailer for the other brand new copy ability, Ranger Kirby. This is the ability previously reported on, where Kirby gets a gun and can fight projectiles and enemies. It's a shame that it doesn't look like the NES Zappers after all, but it definitely looks like a fun ability. This appears to be a World 1 level. There's 2 of these gray enemies. They appear almost dog-like, and sort of remind me of coal miners. They wear the same sort of explorer or ranger hat that Kirby does, and we can see they're shooting at Kirby, pretty similarly to King K. Rool in Smash. It's pretty clear that these enemies give the Ranger copy ability. I love the fact that Kirby's Ranger hat and weapon are more themed to him. He shoots out star projectiles from the gun, similar to when he spits out enemies. He can do this pretty quickly too. There's a big purple hedgehog up ahead, and skipping a bit in the trailer actually takes us up here. See the baguette food item up here? Well, that's where Kirby now stands, charging up the gun. He fires a huge projectile forward that even makes Kirby recoil, taking out the large enemy instantly, and even destroying the boxes behind it. It seems pretty powerful with a good amount of range. This other clip at Ranger Kirby takes place in the snowy region, and this exact location was seen in the first trailer. Kirby shoots the gun while in the air, and when we slow it down, we can see the exact motion. He starts by shooting downwards, before arcing it slightly upwards, firing the whole time. This seems like a pretty wide hit, and he takes out this penguin in the process. We can see a little more of Ranger Kirby from a specific screenshot, set in the amusement park area, which we'll come back to the screenshot for those details later. For now, we're more focused on the Ranger ability. See this purplish line coming out of it? Well, it doesn't seem like Kirby's fired anything yet. So, what is this? Well, remember how the ESRB posting said that Kirby can target enemies with a reticle when using the gun? Perhaps this is what it is. When aiming upwards as he is now, Kirby gets a small pointer showing where the gun is aiming, both for the angle and the target. Maybe not as smooth and free as Samus in Metroid Dread, but it'd be nice to see what's in Kirby's line of sight before firing. Back to the trailer, the next clip is a tease for a boss. It's purple in color, licking its lips. One big pointed tooth is coming out of its mouth on the right here. It seems to have some sort of reptilian scales on its hands, with a couple of big claws. There's also something on its back. At first I thought it might be wings, but upon closer inspection, we can see a hint of the same pattern as on the hands. So it appears almost like a shell on its back. It reminds me of an armadillo, or even a pangolin. The reptilian pattern reminds me of the large snake enemy seen in the first trailer, here in the Wasteland. The pattern might be a coincidence, since this boss doesn't seem reptilian in nature otherwise. As for the location, well, if we look in the background, we can see some fencing, and a popcorn stand. So perhaps this is located in the amusement park that we've seen a few times now. Actually, let's talk about that amusement park now. We get a quick look at it in this trailer when this large metal gate rises up, leading to the entrance. This level takes place at night, showing off the various neon lights across the park. Kirby starts off in some sort of storage area, with electrical panels gated off to the right, as well as various rundown machines being stored here on the left. Looking out at the park, we can see a few fox enemies ahead, but most of the details are hard to make out. Thankfully, there's a screenshot just ahead, dealing with those exact fox enemies. We can tell it's the same not just by the enemies, but also by the placement of this Ferris wheel in the background. Cutter Kirby stands just below the entry arc. Ahead of him, we can see a ride of alternating rocket ships and UFOs moving from right to left, likely along a track. In the upper left appears to be an angry steam train. Why is it so angry? And to the right, robots? It's kinda hard to tell what these are, but it's clear this amusement park is really sci-fi inspired. Naturally, there's also the big Ferris wheel in the background, with the park's logo front and center on it. While likely part of a different level, a couple more screenshots show off the amusement park, so let's look at those next. Starting off with Kirby and Bandana Dee at another entrance. We can tell it's a different part of the same park, not only because it's daytime, but also because of the placement of the Ferris wheel. It's pretty far off to the left now, so this is a completely different section. There's a teal roller coaster track that seems to go all around the park. Man, what a ride that must be. Just look at those angles and slopes way off in the background. Whew. Anyway, we can also see some circus tents on the left and right, and in the background behind Kirby, we can see more UFO or alien-themed rides. We can also make out some rocky cliffs behind the Ferris wheel. Coming back to this shot of Ranger Kirby against a Scarfy, we can see we're pretty close to the Ferris wheel now, and the roller coaster tracks are just as winding here too. The region appears to be pretty mountainous, or is at least located near a rocky region, as we get a good look at them now, still behind the Ferris wheel. Ahead of Kirby are some spinning spacecraft rides as an obstacle. There's a doorway up ahead leading into a building, which likely brings us to some of the interior sections we've seen in the first trailer. Moving on from the amusement park, let's return to this clip of Kirby running in the snow, heading towards a huge bridge. It's pretty foggy, but we can vaguely make out the shape of the other end of the bridge, just past the two sets of streetlights. So while a large bridge in scale, it's not very long apparently. There's lanterns on the interior walls, in contrast to the streetlights ahead. There's also some flags on the exterior portions. There's not much else to say about this shot, except that it's rather beautiful. Seriously, I'm looking forward to seeing just what some of these locations have to offer, because they've been great so far. Next up is Kirby running through this sandy wasteland towards a large building in the sunset. This is also a really beautiful shot. The building is a bit different in structure to the buildings of World 1. The desert sands clearly came and took over this place like an apocalypse, though. There's cacti and various desert plant life all over. This is a pretty stark contrast to how World 1 looks reclaimed by nature with all the greens. The streetlights on the left show just how high the sand climbs, and there's a ton of ruined cars on the right. Sand is also pouring off of the roof of the building in a few places. The window up ahead is smashed, just ahead of the makeshift ramp up to it, so it's clear why Kirby will need to enter the building. While this definitely looks a bit different than the other glimpses of the desert we saw earlier, like in the empty pool, it's also different from the Wasteland we saw in the first trailer, which looked more like a drained ocean. The desert Wasteland world might be pretty varied in its levels, but everything we've seen of it so far looks really fascinating. Something interesting about Kirby in the Forgotten Land is the amount of city-themed levels. This isn't quite the same as Kirby Planet Robobot, turning the entire world into a mechanized form. This is, much more clearly than past times, an Earth-like planet that's been through some sort of disaster, leaving nature to reclaim the remnants. There are signs of former civilizations in the form of cities in the grassy plains, snowy region, and desert region. There's an amusement park in the mountains, and an oil rig in the tropical islands. That's 5 regions we know about so far, and all of them take place in post-apocalyptic lands. It's no wonder the title of the game is The Forgotten Land, because with everything we've seen thus far, that sums it up pretty well. Could the other lands in the game follow suit, or could we go bigger than that? The amusement park has a big focus on space, and let's be honest, Kirby is no stranger to going to space. Speaking of where Kirby can go, let's take a look at the world map. Like Kirby's Star Allies, there's a world map to navigate to reach the different levels. It's also comparable to Super Mario 3D World. We can make out a few points of interest as Kirby flies over World 1. Levels seem to have red dots over them, and we can see from a screenshot that when close, this becomes the detailed info for the level. From the same screenshot, we can see that World 1 is called the Natural Plains. This level we see Kirby and Bandana in is called Downtown Grasslands. It also appears to be the very first level of the game, as this star icon to the left is empty, so it likely hasn't been completed yet. Plus, we can see at the bottom right corner that no Waddle Dees have been rescued of the 46 in this world, so it seems no levels have been completed yet. Additionally, if we look at the other levels around, there's no icons above them, so they don't seem to be selectable levels yet. Kirby's health is displayed in the top left, just like in levels, but notably there aren't any lives displayed. Perhaps this is like Mario Odyssey, lacking a proper system of lives. Anyway, you can press the Y button to view the stage list to see all the different levels in the world, and the point stars are listed just below. Notably, you can't skip ahead to look at any future worlds. If we look ahead to the tropical area on the screenshot, it's covered in clouds, so you probably can't move beyond World 1 until it's completed. Back to the footage of the world map, we can see the red dots over 4 levels, and a purple dot over a 5th. This is likely to indicate the final level of a world, and seems to be the boss level where we fight Gorimondo, the big gorilla boss we first saw in the previous trailer. What really catches my interest though are these strange stars over several locations. There's 7 of them here in World 1. But what are they? Bonus levels? Side missions? How do we even unlock them? Well, they're clearly something of interest that you can stop off at in each world. Don't they look familiar though? These strange stars look exactly like the rift that Kirby falls into in the opening cutscene. So these aren't just icons above levels, they're portals. But portals to what? It's pretty mysterious, and it's hard to connect them to much else. Maybe you collect 5 of the colorful shards in each level, making a star, and it unlocks a new bonus level? But there's only 4 red levels in World 1, and 7 of these rift levels, so that wouldn't really add up properly. Perhaps there's something else at work here. As the clip continues, Kirby flies into the tropical world too. We can see 4 more levels indicated by red dots, and another 6 star rifts. If these rifts are additional levels, then this may be a long Kirby game, with a lot of levels. I'm definitely excited to learn more about how this map works, though there's one last big thing we haven't talked about yet. At any point on the map, you can press the B button to return to the hub, Waddle Dee Town. So we mentioned earlier that our first look at Waddle Dee Town is in ruins, when Kirby saves Elfilin. We know from a specific screenshot that rescuing Waddle Dees is how the town gets restored and built up, eventually reaching the sizable town we see in the trailer, possibly even bigger than that. We see that as the town gets built up, it also looks prettier in general. Take this section by Y's Waddle Dee in the central area. In this screenshot, it looks pretty basic, but when we see it in the trailer, it's very built up, with a small garden and bricks, with fancier benches too. Perhaps the most notable difference is the whole second level that gets added by the point we see in the trailer. So let's break down what this hub town is, as you build it up. Waddle Dee Town is the main hub of the game. You access the world map from here, as seen from the Warp Star. We get a nice look at several things you can do across the town as well, which you can explore with Bandana in co-op too. The presence of Waddle Dees all across town is pretty wholesome. As they populate the town, you can find them in different areas, chatting, reading, relaxing, or even working. They're so cute. On the left is a movie theater, or cinema if you will. This is probably where you can watch cutscenes from the game, and maybe more, such as a concept art gallery. Plus, it's Kirby's 30th anniversary this year, so it would be pretty cool if there was more you can watch here too to celebrate the series. Maybe you can listen to music from the game here too. Perhaps later we'll see an art gallery, museum, and DJ Waddle Dee here in town to fulfill these roles. Anyway, to the right of the theater and the back alley are two capsule dispensers, a yellow one and a green one. Kirby can use these to obtain capsule figures, which we see him do in the trailer. These seem to be the main collectibles this time around, like the keychains, stickers, puzzle pieces, and more from previous Kirby titles. Above him we can see a printed ad for 6 figures: Kirby, Elfilin, a pink car, a captured Waddle Dee, the basic fox enemy of the Beast Pack, and the big gorilla boss we saw in the last trailer. There's likely a ton of these figures in the game. Upon opening the capsule, we can see the small strip of paper ad for other figures in the same series, though it only shows the same ones we already discussed. Kirby is a 3-star figure, and in the top left we can see he's part of Volume 1, so there's likely multiple volumes too. This whole capsule dispenser and its contents are yellow, and we saw a green one just next to it. So each capsule color is likely a different volume. The figures probably all share the same base color though. I wonder how many volumes there are, and how many figures in general. Continuing our tour of Waddle Dee Town, next is his hat store, but we'll actually come back to this one later. So next, I'll bring our attention to this large building just above it. We can see that later into development of the town, a second level gets added. There's this pathway on the left in the alley above the capsule dispensers as well, so perhaps there's more up here. But for now, let's focus on a large circular building. There's 2 swords above the entrance, so it's pretty clearly some sort of arena. There's also a small orange and blue stand in front of it, maybe selling refreshments to those looking to watch some battles. Anyway, this arena matches up pretty well with the clip of Meta Knight in the trailer. With all these Waddle Dees in the crowd, where else would this be? Plus, it also seems to be a pretty round arena. It's hard to say exactly what will happen here beyond the battle with Meta Knight, though. Could this be boss refights? Or perhaps a whole separate side mode arena with unique bosses and enemies from across the Kirby series, with little to no bearing on the main plot? Past Kirby games had arenas, so it seems pretty likely this will serve a similar purpose. Next up is this little cafe on the right, which we get a nice close-up view of. They even own this little table on the left, with 3 Waddle Dees just chillin'. This small cafe is pretty cute. A Waddle Dee stands just below a menu next to the stairs, while another one works inside. These stairs to the left lead up to the rooftop, where there's another table for seating. We see Kirby, Elfilin, and Bandana enjoying some Kirby-themed burgers here in a screenshot. While this is likely part of a cutscene, what if Kirby can buy food items to restore his health here, and we get cute little clips like this of the trio enjoying their meals together? That would be adorable. We can also get a look at the cafe menu when Kirby runs around town. There's a burger, energy drink, maximum tomato, and this car-shaped pink thing on the top left. Not sure what this is, but it looks pretty similar to the capsule figure as well. The cafe isn't just here for Kirby to order food from though. He can also play a minigame. Kirby puts on his own little work hat and, well, gets to work. Waddle Dees line up and order something specific off the menu, and Kirby must give them what they want. A meter up top depletes over time, but if a correct order is given, it fills back up. This is likely a timer for how long a Waddle Dee will wait for its order. Kirby must move back and forth to the correct food item to give to the Waddle Dee. For now, we only see a maximum tomato and energy drink, but there's plenty of room for more, perhaps at higher difficulties. The score gets displayed in the lower left, going up as Kirby gives correct orders. The time remaining for the minigame is displayed in the top right. We only see Waddle Dees order one at a time, but I wonder if at higher difficulties we'll see multiples at once. This looks like it could be a pretty fast minigame, and I look forward to giving it a try. There's a bit more beyond the cafe to the right, and to view that, we need to jump to this final clip of the trailer with the release date. While Kirby sits on a chair on the rooftop, we can see this post office. The blue cap is really cute on this Waddle Dee. There's a bunch of stored luggage in a compartment to the left, and several rolls of tape behind the desk, for packaging. While having a post office in town is nice, what if it serves more purpose for Kirby? Could players send items or letters to other friends online playing the game? Honestly, I'm not sure what else this post office would be used for. Here's hoping we find out soon. To the right is a staircase leading up to the second level, and in a different scene we can see that there's some sort of shop up top, though we can't really make out what's up there. It appears to have a flower design up top. To the right of these buildings Kirby's resting on, there's some more Waddle Dees relaxing in benches and chairs. And it's thanks to them that we now know this down here is actually where Kirby goes fishing. This fishing clip is pretty quick, yet tranquil. Kirby puts on a fishing hat and sits on an appropriately themed chair, and casts a line into the water, while Bandana Dee does the same. Well, minus the fishing hat. Despite the lack of UI, I'm pretty sure this is another minigame. This is probably just the start of it, since we see the duo casting their lines. If this isn't a minigame, maybe Kirby and his allies can just sit around in different areas of the town and enjoy themselves in downtime. It would certainly be cute, but I'm more inclined to believe it's a minigame of sorts. Of course, Bandana Dee being here raises a question. Can Bandana Dee take part in the other content as well with Kirby? Can Bandana Dee work in the Cafe Minigame, or join Kirby in the arena against Meta Knight? It would be great for players looking to play the entire game in 2-player co-op at the very least. We already know he can wander around town with Kirby, and it would be strange to do that, yet not be able to do anything else in the hub town. Beyond the buildings, Kirby can also talk with Wise Waddle Dee in the main plaza. According to an official Twitter post, Wise Waddle Dee can give useful tips, hints on where to find special items, and even show how the player's adventuring skills stack up against other players in the world. You can press X to check online, while pressing Y lets you check update data. Perhaps the Wise Waddle Dee can read out patch notes, or inform players of an update to the game. Checking online probably informs you of the various minigame and side mode stats from other players, as well as the most popular copy ability being used. Finally, the last detail of Waddle Dee Town. This hat store. We can see several hats on display in the windows, and the logo above the door is of the Sword Kirby hat, as well as some sort of scroll. So there's two ideas here. What if Kirby can customize his different copy abilities here, like in recent spin-off titles, giving different hats and themes for all the copy abilities in the game? This would be incredible, but it's not very likely. Maybe this is just where you can view all the copy abilities, or even obtain one of your choice before going back out into the world. It's conveniently located right near the Warp Star after all. Another idea, perhaps an unlikely one though, this scroll reminds many of the ability scrolls in Kirby's Squeeze Squad. Obtaining these would enhance Kirby's copy abilities, with new moves and features to each one. Could that be the case here too? It would be fantastic to see even more development with Kirby's abilities, but I'm not so sure. I think viewing and obtaining copy abilities is the most likely outcome here, probably at the cost of some point stars. But the scroll has to mean something, right? Okay, we're almost done here, but before we wrap up, let's go over all of Kirby's copy abilities that we know in the game so far. Between both trailers, we've seen Sword Kirby, Cutter Kirby, Hammer Kirby, Bomb Kirby, Tornado Kirby, the new Drill Kirby, the new Ranger Kirby, Crash Kirby, Fire Kirby, Sleep Kirby, Needle Kirby, and Ice Kirby. That's 12 abilities so far, and I'm sure there's going to be more than that in the end. We talked about the possibility of Poison Kirby returning, for example. Could there be other new abilities too? Finally, we'll close out this analysis with some big questions. Just who is the Beast Pack? Why cross dimensions through this rift to kidnap Waddle Dees of all things? We've seen that Gorimondo, the big gorilla boss, is probably part of their pack, but what other beasts will Kirby encounter? And perhaps the biggest question of all, just who is Elfilin? Why was he captured just like the Waddle Dees? Is he going to turn out to be some sort of horrible abomination, as is standard for Kirby games? Did he create the rift that Kirby and others have traveled through? Clearly, something larger than the Beast Pack is at work here, and I'm inclined to think back to Kirby's Squeeze Squad with the Squeaks. But let's back up here. A post-apocalyptic Earth-like planet, with a strange amount of focus and references to space, including these strange star-shaped rifts in space, and the radio transmission opening to the music. Something big is stirring in the background, potentially as big as Kirby's first 3D adventure is. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and though this new trailer showed us a ton of new info, it also raised a lot more questions. But, thankfully, we don't have very long to wait. Kirby in the Forgotten Land comes out in just a couple of months, on March 25th. Hopefully we learn more soon, and when we do, you can bet we'll be back with more. Thank you all so much for watching this big analysis on the second trailer for Kirby in the Forgotten Land. So, what do you guys think? Did you notice something that we didn't? Make sure to let us know in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for plenty more on Kirby. Check out the videos on the right for more content you might be interested in. Until next time, farewell.